I'm asking, are you fed up with the two main parties? George Galloway's by-election result in Rochdale has sparked debate over the dominance of the two main parties in British politics. Galloway is the leader of the Workers' Party of Britain, and the candidate who finished in second place was the local businessman David Tully, who stood as an independent. The result has highlighted growing dissatisfaction with mainstream politics. Galloway's victory in Rochdale and Reform UK's gains in recent polls underscore what appears to be a shift in political dynamics and a yearning for alternative voices. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are you fed up with the two main parties? I'm joined now by James Matthewson, former Labour spokesperson, and James Price, ex-Treasury Special Advisor and Director of Government Relations at the ASI. That's a lot, isn't it? All right, so I'm going to start with you, James Price. Are we fed up of these two? The two main ones. It's boring. I think
it's fair enough to say that people are fed up with it, but I think that that's just a normal function of a democracy. The fact that you're allowed to complain about parties and you can get fed up and turf them out of office after a certain period of time. But I think that they're really important for a few reasons. One, in terms of our kind of parliamentary democracy, you need to be able to command a majority in the House in order to form a government and to be able to have some kind of coherent majority to pass legislation. For that to happen, the parties are still the best way of doing that because they all tend to agree on broad ideological ideas and that you can test out ideas, right? We need conservative ideas for now. We might need more liberal, classical liberal ideas for the future. And if we don't have that and you just have a squabble, then you never actually get anything done and the government would never be able to respond to any kind of crisis.
Well, it just sounds like that's what we've just had, actually. You're saying that. As you're saying it, I'm saying that's exactly what I'm seeing. James Matthewson, your thoughts? Oh, is he frozen?
I think I lost you there for a second now. I can hear you again now.
Oh, you're back now. You were frozen for a moment. Go for it, James. So what are your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I think so. I think as James rightly puts it, the other James puts it quite well, is that, you know, it's important to get fed up. Like, it is part of democracy. It's part of that democratic process. But I think it does show you that when people get fed up, the risk is that they drift towards those extremes. And the extreme side of things, you know, which isn't set up for our mainstream political system isn't set up to handle that. And of course, if you had systems, you know, more like PR and all the rest of which I've, you know, always been a bit torn on because of those extremes and because you allow people into the system then who, you know, are more representative of the population democratically, but do harbour more extreme views. That's basically what we're seeing a bit of with this, because the Labour Party essentially vacated that seat, you know, unwillingly, much to the frustration of people I've spoken to in the party this week. But at the end of the day, they vacated the seat, and that absence of their presence allowed for George Galloway to get in. There is no doubt in my mind, George Galloway is an extremist, and I think there was a poll done earlier this week by Politics Relaxed, and Politics Relaxed did a great poll that said that young people, they asked what they thought of George Galloway, and they said 66% of young people had negative thoughts about George Galloway. So I don't think he's representative of some new change in politics.
Did they see the bit where he was a cat? Do you think that's what put them off?
But this is the thing, right? Those young people were probably too young to even remember that now because it was so long ago.
Well, don't worry.
If they'd seen that, it might have been even higher. You never know.
Well, we're going to play a little bit of that as a reminder to anyone who's forgotten. Stay tuned. That'll be coming up later on in the show. James Price, you said, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, James Matthewson mentioned proportional representation. That ends up with lots of little parties and hung parliaments and a bit of an untidy mess. Do you think it's time for reform, as in reform, not Reform UK?
Well, I think this is exactly the problem. You see this on the continent all the time, that one party can come top and they can never get anywhere near power because they get ganged up on by lots of other ones, even if there's some kind of democratic, you would say, mandate for it. This is the problem, that you end up with politicians doing exactly what the public really, really hates, which is kind of grubby backroom deals to build coalitions where they trade off the things they don't care as much about. They put stuff into their manifestos knowing they'll trade it away in negotiations to form coalitions and things like that. I think that's completely wrong. That's why I think that first past the post is still the best way to do this. And I think that if you looked at some results, say 2015, maybe you'd have found that the Conservatives and UKIP would go into a coalition. I might have been more relaxed about that. I suspect lots of people that want proportional representation, as it's known, would be less okay with it. And because you have a couple of big parties with other ones people can move in and out of as well, you tend to knock all the kind of really hardcore, extreme, far left people, some of the far right people too, out of the mainstream parties, because you're trying to get a kind of broad consensus. And I think that gives us a much more healthy body politic than if you were to have lots of really extreme parties pulling the mainstream ones further to dangerous ideas.
But you know what, though? The people who want PR are always the smaller parties. And then, obviously, once you get into power, you wouldn't want proportional representation. You'd want it the way it is, which is why the parties come into power and then they think, oh, I'm not doing that. And that's never going to happen, is it, with the bigger parties? Let's bring in Reem Ibrahim. She's a political commentator. Reem, what are your thoughts? Are you fed up with these two main parties?
I am. I think what's particularly interesting about the way in which the Conservative Party and the Labour Party have sort of been pulling towards their ideological direction. I think over the years people have been using this word, polarisation, arguing that the two main parties are incredibly polarised. But at the moment, I don't seem to think that that's the case. And I think that voters at the moment don't feel as though that they have a choice. This Conservative government, they've got the highest tax burden since the Second World War, incredible amounts of inflation as a result of huge amounts of government spending, completely reckless, and the Bank of England's quantitative easing measures. So we effectively have an economy that is being stifled by growth. The government is not doing anything to help that, and they are actually actively increasing measures to go against that. The Labour Party itself, again, they aren't necessarily providing a different option that is radical enough for voters. So, if you are a voter and you voted in Rochdale in the by-election, the two main parties don't seem particularly attractive. And that's why you get these issues like foreign policy issues that seem to take precedence over domestic issues. One thing I think that's particularly interesting about the by-election is the cost of living crisis or inflation was nowhere to be seen. The main issue that was spoken about during the by-election is not actually the legacy of the Conservative government or the legacy of Keir Starmer going forward, what that could look like. Everything that was spoken about seemed to have been local issues and foreign policy issues in which George Galloway was very, very good at capturing that kind of political motive.
Yeah, James Matthewson, do you think that this George Galloway victory is a shift and a start and a change, the beginning of a change? Or do you think it's just a one-off? Because it seems that people are now focusing more on the local issues that matter to them, and they're listening to what their politicians are saying rather than voting for an overall party. Or do you think that that's how by-elections are? People vote locally until it comes to the general election.
I think, like in every by-election, there's an opportunity for us to kind of take the temperature a little bit, and I think we're able to do that with Rochdale. But as Reem's just pointed out there, I think it's a very unique set of circumstances, this by-election, and you will hear people saying that, and you will hear Labour people saying that. I'm trying to be objective. It is a unique set of circumstances because of them vacating the seat. George Galloway would like you to believe that this is some kind of, I think he said, the tectonic plates have shifted. George Galloway's never been one for, kind of being humble and being modest, let's be honest. So I think he's blown out of proportion completely what this victory means. I think he'll be there until October, November, whenever the general election is, and then he'll be booted back out by the Labour Party. He'll win the seat again. So that's probably most likely to be the outcome. And then at the end of the day, to say that it gives you some idea of something changing, I think the one thing that it does say to me is that there is dissatisfaction, and the Labour Party now needs to make its offer crystal clear, and it needs to start putting some policy ideas forward to the general public.
Yeah, but Labour would say that they would have had this sort of candidate. There's a good reason why their candidate was not standing for ridiculous comments that the candidate made. So that would reflect on the Labour Party in any case. James, do you think James, not James M, but James P, do you think that that Labour just were unfortunate on this occasion, or do you think the sands are shifting?
No, I think it was a really, really embarrassing moment for Labour that they picked this guy without doing the due diligence. And the problem with this chap, by the way, let's all remember that he was saying that Israel let Hamas break into its borders to go and kill people, so they had an excuse. It's just It was horrendous stuff, and he was saying it either because he thought it or because he thought Labour voters would believe it as well and it would be good, or probably, I suspect the case was that both of those things were true. I think that what this shows actually is that far from being fed up with the main parties, many, many more people should get back involved in them. I think they both can, with small memberships they've got at the moment, they can be easily captured by small groups. Some might think that the Conservatives have got an older support base and therefore they are against things like house building, that the Adam Smith Institute would say we need to do more of to help the economy out and help younger people own their own homes, something like that. The Labour Party, again, we've seen in recent years, be captured by all kinds of crazy people under the Corbyn years and God knows what else. We've got a lot more high-quality, thoughtful, passionate, patriotic Brits joining these parties and pushing them in good directions and lending their skills to it at local and national levels, then we'd get round some of the worst excesses of these parties being captured, and we wouldn't need the Galloways of the world to show there's a weakness in some of the systems.
Well, I think, you make a good point, but I think Reem also, you made a good point about the two parties being so similar, that they are so similar now. I think, in the words of Richard Tice, that they are both, in my view, and I agree with them, they've become socialist parties. Do you think that the nature of the way these parties are evolving means that people might actually start going for parties that are no longer within the main two?
Well, I think James makes an excellent point that actually if more people were to join those parties and encourage different types of ideologies to be sort of shown towards the forefront of the party, then potentially they're able to actually develop that kind of difference and actually strong sort of economic policies. I mean, we saw the Conservative Party really shift over the last few years. And I think that particularly with the Conservative Party, there seems to be a kind of identity crisis, which will probably play out after they lose the next general election. And then we'll hopefully get a truly Conservative party, although I'm not sure I'm that optimistic. I think what's interesting about the Rochdale by-election is that it really has taught, I think, the Labour Party a lesson. More than 80% of Muslim voters in this country voted for Labour in 2019. And I think that Keir Starmer has tried to kind of overcompensate as a result of all of those horrendous accusations of anti-Semitism that we saw within the Labour Party during Corbyn's premiership. And so as a result of that, Starmer overcompensated.
You think, yeah? Do you think? I don't know. I think he's just desperate to get any vote in different pockets of... And he's prepared to sit on the fence so that he can get every single person's vote, but you can't please all the people all of the time. Well, listen, thank you so much to James Matthewson. Final then to you. Are you fed up, yes or no, of the two main parties, yes or no?
Oh no, I'm very much ready for a Labour government. I think we will, we'll see that towards the end
yes or no.
And then we can all stop.
No, it's just yes or no.
We can complain about the Labour
James
government.
Price, yes or no.
There was a politician's answer there,
wasn't
there?
Wasn't it? Yes or no?
Not fed up.
Not fed up. And Reem Ibrahim, yes or no?
I am, yes.
I am. I'm with you, Reem Ibrahim. Thank you very much.